welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me, as always, is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo. How you doing, J.P.?
I'm doing good.
You sporting your jet green shirt today on, huh?
I am.
Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades in jet green.
Yeah,
we made that special for you because
I know
you're
you
a
did.
Jets
Everybody
fan.
else has. You gave me a blue one too, though.
Yeah.
Everybody, no one wants a jet green shirt, right?
Not in New England.
No, that's true, but that's okay. That's all right.
Actually, you know, looking at the screen, my blue shirt, this doesn't stand out too well on the screen, does it?
No, that's okay.
Maybe
That's like standing in. Lucky it's not a green screen.
Yeah.
Or my head would just show my hands, probably.
JP's floating head. Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club, 1732 Lakeshore Road, wilsonhillpistol.org. We have open membership. You're welcome to go to the website, check out our training calendar, and show up to a meeting first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. Training available right now. This Saturday is Fast Handgun, Fundamentals and Safety Training Handgun. It's a entry-level handgun class at 8 a.m. this Saturday. It's an all-day class. And then May 10th, you can register for Defensive Shotgun 2, but only if you took Defensive Shotgun 1. It is a very small class. And I think that's it for the schedule.
What about the share a gun thing or whatever that was?
The try a gun was this past Saturday, and nobody showed up because we got 2 inches of snow that nobody expected. On my way there, I saw 3 accidents.
Yeah, I know how that happened too.
So
I took my studded snow tires off the day before.
Really? Yeah.
I
people
can't blame
forgot
it
how
on
to
Lorraine
drive
anymore, right? Because it was her fault before, but yeah.
Anyway, that's our sponsor, Wilson Hill Pistol Club. And tonight we have a returning guest, one of our favorite guests, Leah Cushman. How you doing?
The Honorable.
Thank you.
Honorable Leah Cushman.
I do it all the time.
I know, that's okay.
Bad enough when I forget you.
I know, that's nobody cares.
Honorable Leah Cushman from where, New Hampshire? How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming. Even though I messed up the dates in my calendar somehow, and I was trying to find out what date it was. I thought it was tonight, but for some reason I got sidetracked. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. I only remembered yesterday, so.
Well, at least you remembered. That's good. So you have some new news to talk about. If you want to start with that, I think that'd be great. And I see you have, is that smart water?
It is. It's not my preferred water, but.
Does it make you smart? Do you feel smarter?
No.
You don't feel any smarter? Yeah, people say, well, that's real. This is, like not real water, but that smart water is
I
like.
don't feel smart buying.
I don't know.
I don't
I
like
Fiji
buying
water.
Yeah.
Is what I usually buy when I'm out.
It's the most abundant substance on planet Earth, and we're going to the store and paying for it in a bottle.
I never thought.
It literally falls out of the sky, folks. It falls out of the sky.
I remember when that first came out, I'm thinking, I would never buy water. I can just fill up a container, but you end up buying water.
No, I would prefer that too, but I tend to lose things. So
oh, you do?
I often will refill a water bottle, which I know isn't good because of the microplastics and all the carcinogens and stuff. So but my well water is really good.
Yeah,
that's what I prefer.
Mine is too, except that I had to put a softener. Yeah, because of, I forgot what it was, some kind of rust or something.
Oh yeah, we have iron in our city.
Yeah, iron, that's it, thank you.
There was some cyanide in the New Boston area. Some of the wells over
really?
There. Low levels, but enough to
maybe that's
do something about it.
Well,
arsenic's pretty common too.
Yeah, so tell us what you're doing now, because you're no longer in the house, and neither one of us are anymore. But it was a fun ride. It was interesting. Learned a lot about, political system in the state and how it should work.
Right.
I will say that.
Yeah.
And then I'll keep quiet. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, thank you. We recently formed a nonprofit with 8 other people, staunch advocates. It's called New Hampshire Family Justice. You can find our website. It's nhfamilyjustice.org. And basically, our mission is to educate and for accountability, transparency, and reform in the state's child and family justice systems. So kind of continuing the work that I started in 2023 and 2024 in the House. So.
Yeah, so go ahead.
So there's a lot of changes coming down the road for that. Isn't there something going through the House about changing the family court system?
So there is a bill, HB 652. It's retained in the House Children and Family Law Committee right now. It was sponsored by J.D. Bernardi, and so the family court, a little bit of history, it was only started in 2005. It originally was a pilot program, and then they enacted it throughout the state. And it was kind of cooked up in some meetings of judges, and it was part of this kind of wave of reform that went on across the country. The talk at the time was these cases are complex and they need their own docket, and we need specialized judges, this and that. Well, it ended up being that, and it's in every state in one way or another, that these courts are set up in ways that are unconstitutional, and they enable broad judicial discretion and non-adherence to law. There's a lot of deprivation of due process. There is an opportunity for a lot of fleecing of the litigants. And a lot of that has to do with either unlimited billing for contractors of the court or incentives and grants from the federal government that kind of drive a certain model that ends up taking place in the court. So it's only 20 years old in New Hampshire. Prior to that, abuse and neglect cases, divorce cases, and domestic violence cases were dealt with in Superior Court, which is like a real court of record. It proceeds according to equity and common law rules. So the family court is really written into statute, how it operates, and it's special because there's no requirement to apply consistent rules of evidence in the family court. So that's something that deviates from the processes in the other, in real courts.
Right.
And essentially, because the magistrate who sits there, they used to call them magistrates, then referees. They are not sworn judicial officers appointed by the governor and the council, so they're not constitutional officers. They cannot put people, their orders are rather unenforceable, and the Supreme Court actually stated that in a ruling in 2007 when they got the question from the legislature.
Would this be why local police are reticent to enforce things like custody orders and things like that?
Yeah, we have a huge problem with the sheriffs and local law enforcement. They just don't.
I think we've all met people where you've got parents who are fighting over custody or child support or something like that, and one parent says, "Hey, I got this order that says that I need to be able to do this," and the other parent says, "Well, whatever, no." And then the police won't intervene.
Yeah, they say it's a civil matter.
Exactly.
You have to go back to court.
Right, but then even if you go back to court, you don't get any type of paperwork that allows it to be enforced by the local police.
No, you don't.
So
it's just,
what's the
here's my
recourse
order.
if someone's in contempt?
It's a good question. There is no contempt really. It's applied very selectively.
So is that turning into a political? Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Finish.
This is all a byproduct of this reform that took place in 2005.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, pretty much. And honestly, since the court's inception, Mark Pearson in 2023, he's the chairman of the House Children and Family Law Committee now. But in 2023, he said, we've been hearing these same complaints for 10 years. Due process, that there's denial of due process and issues with, the way that the court handles things. And he said it the other day in a hearing where actually he was very hostile toward anyone who had complaints about the court and said that they should be in jail. But yeah, he did. So we've got problems there. But anyway, the bill, 652, it basically would restore it back to the way it was before. It would take out the ability. I mean, some states have RICO lawsuits going on for their family courts.
Yep.
By the patterns, it's provable in New Hampshire too that this is a racketeering. They're commoditizing the movement of children, and using the child as the bait to keep the parent coming back, and then different court contractors will come in and kind of the process, if they want to, they can make it so that they create more contention between the parties, and like we see the rulings come out, right? There were rulings to place children with convicted sex offenders who were already convicted of sexually assaulting little girls. Yes, this was only a couple months ago. I mean, there's multiple of these case examples. Rulings that just don't make sense, right? That any person with morals or who you would think would be a judge would never make that decision, just keep coming out of the court, placing kids, and they make the determinations for where kids go for foster placement and things like that. They make the orders. They're the gateway for YDC, DCYF, and child support. And all of these areas you hear that there are problems.
Sure.
So it's like kind of this nexus. So the bill would just restore it to pre-2005, and it would create an Office of Family Mediation with, which is optional. That could be the first place people go. And other states that have a mediation option like that have much less caseload. Most people will work it out in mediation, and it ends up costing the state a lot less money, and it ends up costing the litigants a lot less money, and it's less contentious. It's just overall better.
So what do they do now?
So right now, so if you were having a divorce, or if DCYF made a finding of abuse and they against you in their closed hearing, where you're not allowed to appear, by the way. So you didn't have due process yet. And so for those hearings, or for child support adjustment or order creation, or domestic violence, you find yourself in the family court. And depending on what the issue is, there's a series of steps. But basically they can order, the judges can order that you go to mediation, but that's with a contractor that's not credentialed with the American Academy of Mediators, Family Mediators.
So these are private contractors?
Right. And there's no limit to the billing. So like every order is generating fees for the court, fees for the attorneys, hours for the attorneys, even the GALs, most are attorneys, and the good GALs, you'll find the judges don't want to work with them, so they won't put them on a case. So it depends on what kind of case we're talking about, but
right.
I mean, it just goes sideways in so many ways. So the whole issue that's driving it is when it was discovered that there were not enough low-income people in New Hampshire to generate Title IV-D money.
So that's government money.
That's federal government.
Right.
So Title IV-D is a program under the Social Security Act, and it's child support enforcement.
Okay.
And basically it was created as a recoupment program for, broken families where there's a single parent and say the other parent's not contributing, so then they end up on TANF and Medicaid and food stamps and stuff. So the federal government said we're going to enforce child support for those low-income families, so that the father or the mother, depending on who it is paying, whoever the non-custodial parent is paying. Well, we didn't have enough low-income families in New Hampshire, so they had to go back to the drawing board. And one of the judges, and this is, I mean, you can look, this is in a law journal where this was cited. They went on a retreat with some business type consultants, and they said you need to run it as a business. You need to use a business model. It has to be solvent, because you're not getting, the federal funds are not going to hold it up on their own. So ever since then, it's really been about generating money for the court and the contractors and everyone involved. So and they're using, so they had to scoop in higher income people, and then we fail our audits for Title 4D because we're using it to cover cases it's not supposed to apply to. But they need about 20% complex cases in order to generate that federal funding. So it's an incentive for them to create that docket with those complex caseloads. So that's kind of the drive for, and it's not every single judge, it's not every single circuit court, it's not every single GAL,
right.
You know, but you've got people who are exploiting it, exploiting the ability to.
So what options
to work for themselves
does a family have? How does that work? What if they have to go through that process to get, to come to a mediation?
Yeah, well, so the mediation right now is like court ordered. You have no choice, and they usually do order it, and you have to pay for it. So there's a lot of fees that end up racking up. I mean, people are forced to sell their homes because of all of the court services that are ordered for them, and this is like divorce and DCYF petition cases too. So they basically. So there's that. Then might order therapy.
Now, who's doing the ordering? The judge?
The judge. So it's not a judge; it's a referee.
I was just going to say, yeah.
But they make them look like judges. It's basically what's going on is it's a federal program, and contractors for a federal program that just happen to be required by statute to wear black robes and appear like judges, and it happens to be that the federal program is carried out in a courthouse, but it's really
they could do it.
But do they actually have the power of a judge?
They don't technically, and
so these magistrates, when they sign these documents, they're not enforceable.
So one of the judges, I think it was 2007.
This makes no sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
How can a custody agreement
it's
be
under
not enforceable?
color of law? It's. To make it legal, they have a judge sign off on it. But the judges have said, we're just rubber stamping. We're not looking at the witnesses, we're not looking at the testimony, we're not in the courtroom. Our signature's not really us, reviewing and.
What if they didn't sign it? Then what would
the
happen?
clerk signs it sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
But what's blowing my mind here is that if there is an order in place, and one parent or the other defies that order, right? Okay, so we got an order in place, right? But one parent says, you know what? This order doesn't hold the weight of the law because it's a magistrate and not a judge that created this. So I'm just going to take my kids and I'm going to move across the state line into Maine.
Right.
That should be unenforceable. Yet one of those two parents is going to get arrested.
Right. And it's kind of selective which one does.
Exactly.
Because there's no, because of the way that the rules of evidence can be waived and things like that, they can.
That's the other thing that bugs me is the waiving of the rules of evidence. I mean, let's be honest. We all know people or have been through these types of things ourselves, and it was a frustrating process at that time. And it's more frustrating to realize that none of it ever held the weight of the law.
Yep. So because they can waive rules of evidence and there's like so much discretion available to the judges, they can. And I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard how like the courts have a culture of being kind of a country club, and like the attorneys have to be on good terms with the judge, and
or if they don't get
and they're all like, a lot of them are friends, and
never mind that the attorneys that are fighting each other, when they're done with they're going out to drink in the evening, right? I've seen it. I've seen prosecutors and public defenders sitting at a bar together.
Right. So if they want to make a predetermined outcome, they can basically, because they have that full discretion over evidence and procedure, they can, and they have, accept all the evidence from one side and none from the other, They don't put anyone under oath typically because they don't have that power constitutionally awarded to them because they're not sworn judicial officers. So there's no pursuit of perjury. DCYF has been
that's the
caught
other one that's
perjuring in court multiple times, and it comes out later in lawsuits.
Yep, like now.
In November, OCA, the Office of the Child Advocate, issued a report to the Oversight Commission on Children's Services, and it said in there, like, DCYF presented false information in the court, and this is just a sample that they're looking through on 2 cases, and it resulted in the judge giving orders in error. A lot of the judges in there are also judges, right? They're in Superior Court and they're also judges, so they're sworn in that arena.
But not in the other arena.
But because they're getting Title IV-D money, Title IV-D requires that you can't use judges. You're using administrative law judges, which are referees. And so in that venue, in the family court, they're either not complying with the federal law that requires them not to be judges, or they're not judges. You know what I mean? So it's a huge mess.
And yet, if I speak up in the middle of the courtroom, they'll hold me in contempt and have the bailiff put me in handcuffs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But they don't have that authority.
Right. It's
wow.
So, and I mean, retired judges. A lot of them are retired judges also, and there's specific like restrictions on what judges can do. You're not supposed to be a judge and an attorney, and we've seen a lot of the family court referees have practices. You're not supposed to have any other job, honestly.
Right.
And they're...
Well, that's the whole point of being a judge, is that you're not under the influence of any other...
Right, you're neutral on it.
Exactly. You know, if...
What are they... So, if it goes back to what you said, 2005, how does that change it? In other words, what did it say in 2005 that it's not saying now?
So it used to be that these would just go through Superior Court, right? And then so you're subject to all of the precedent, right, that comes with
legislative office.
No, I mean, going back to common law requirements for due process.
Okay.
So if they were to arbitrarily weigh evidence and say, we're not going to accept this evidence, and you can point to the fact that, you know, they just use their discretion, they're not following the law with how they're doing it, that's not going to hold up in that venue.
Right.
But in the
current one.
Right, it does. And it's all written by statute, and it's like the statutes override constitutional requirements for due process and evidence and all of that. And they're really not lawful, but it continues. And I mean...
So is you... Go ahead.
I apologize.
No, go ahead. No, go.
You say they're really not lawful, and you said that in 2007 a decision was made that said so. So
yeah, that they're not really. So they asked.
So there's a trail.
Yeah.
There's a legal trail that actually says this is not lawful.
Yep. There is, and there's a legal trail that it was intentional, that it was intentionally set up to be operated like a business on a judicial retreat with a business consultant.
And yet here we are.
Yep. And I tried to publish an op-ed about that and reference the journal and everything, and they wouldn't take it because I named the judge who said it, because now he's still there.
But that's public record.
It's out there. Yeah, it's in a law journal where he said it, and it was in an email where it was confirmed. But that judge now is making... he is giving the attorneys in the YDC settlements, which a lot of the decisions to send kids to YDC came through the family court. Like, a lot of the kids who were sitting in YDC were just taken from their parents, and they didn't have a foster or a group home for them to go to. So they went to YDC, and they were not juvenile offenders or anything like that. They weren't delinquents. And we're talking really young kids too. But a lot of those cases, you know, all of those cases, a lot of them since 2005 went through the family court and ended up, you know, being there. And now that judge who was like, we need to run this like a business model, blah, 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 he was called out by the Attorney General Famella for giving too much to the attorneys in those cases. And so he's now on the other side of it, giving big awards to, and big chunks of the awards to the attorneys for abuse that kind of went through that system. I don't know if you're tracking what I'm saying, but like,
yeah, well, I am.
They're on both sides, and it's not just that judge. There's multiple players who were either in the Attorney General's office during the abuse, or were law firms that were getting clients referred to them by the New Hampshire Coalition against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and now they either sit on the Supreme Court because they used to be attorneys, or they like they represented the state, and now they're representing victims. It's just kind of convoluted, and there's a lot of conflicts that maybe those people shouldn't have been on.
So this bill it's in committee right now.
It is. It's retained. So Chairman Mark Pearson is so hostile to any attempts to reform family court. He chaired the. He basically keeps chairing these sham committees. And he oversees a lot about child welfare in New Hampshire. He's on the HHS Oversight Committee. He's on the committee, I believe he's on the commission, Oversight Commission for Children's Services. He's on, or used to be, or might still be on something about disabled children, like a commission. But he also was the chair of the Special Committee on Family Court, which was hijacked. Originally, J.D. Bernardi brought H.R. 14, which was a resolution to create a investigative committee to look at all of the allegations of grievances in family court, and really do an in-depth review. Who are the judges? Right. What are the common complaints? What are the patterns we see? What attorneys? What therapists? What guardian ad litem? What courts? And really do an in-depth.
Let me guess.
Figure it out.
Nobody wants that investigation to take place.
No, they don't. So it's very interesting because Sherman Packard took that bill off of consent, and he's only supposed to be able to do that if it has a fiscal note, which it didn't, and it requires 10 people to take a bill off consent now, and it was just removed from consent, and then Chairman Pearson went up and motioned to table it. And then Sherm appointed the special committee with Chairman Pearson, and I think that the people who were on it and really wanted to do something about it kind of just were, he led, so they just kind of went with what he did. But it's just more hacking at the branches instead of striking at the root of the issue.
Yeah.
And during those hearings, it was like, he would have the judges and the judicial branch attorney talk for like an hour and 20 minutes, and then he limited the public to 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yep.
And I mean, he does it now. He gave JD 10 minutes to introduce his bill, and then the public 3 minutes, and then at the end, he invited the attorney for the judicial branch, Erin Cregan, up for a rebuttal. He said for a rebuttal, and she spoke for like a long time and wasn't subject to that rule. And so, like, it's just this obvious imbalance and like being partiality toward the, and it's not just on this issue. But so he told the witnesses, the public, you can't name names, and basically like told them that they would need to leave and gavelled them, or told them they wouldn't be allowed to testify again when they did try to name names. And then 2 weeks ago, he formed this little subcommittee, and it had one of its opening hearings, and there was literally no one in the room but Erin Cregan, who's the attorney for the judicial branch, and like a couple of other people, and like 2 legislators who are on the subcommittee on family court, and they just act like everything is hunky-dory, and it's a show, and it's you can see right through it. But that's when he said, we've been hearing these same complaints for
10 years.
Yeah, well, he actually,
something about it.
He actually read from a report from a year after the family court was created, where the same problems were, and he said, oh, the same complainers are around. And it's like, no, you have new people all the time coming. They're making victims every year. And then he said, the judges should have broad discretion, and if it was me, most of them should be in jail.
Yeah.
And
who said that?
Chairman Pearson. And basically then was like, oh, they come here and they don't have exact issues with the Constitution that are happening, or with names. And it's like, you told them that they couldn't tell names.
Now, was Kim Rice on that committee?
She was not on the special committee. She wasn't serving at the time.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if she's on the subcommittee. She wasn't at that hearing.
So go ahead. No, go ahead. No, I want you to talk. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm fine.
All right, so the bottom line is we have a problem with the family court system here in New Hampshire. The problem was created in 2005 deliberately. And we've got for lack of a better term, a deep state who is enjoying the fact that this is a fiasco for families. Yep. It's hurting children, it's hurting parents, it's hurting wallets. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to do something at the legislature, but it's not going anywhere, at least not this term. We don't have the right people in there. But you're doing something about it. Let's talk about what you were doing.
Sure. So New Hampshire Family Justice, we come from all different backgrounds: legal, finance, healthcare, law, I said legal, marketing, and there's 8 of us. Some of us are family court victims. Some of us are not. Many of us are not. Some of us are just people who see something going wrong and want to fix it. And essentially our mission is to inform people about what's going on, inform people about the problem, and inform them what the solutions are as well. Explain to them what their rights are, because a lot of people don't know what the requirements for due process are.
Sure.
Essentially, it boils down to not being arbitrary and capricious.
Right.
And that's what this system is.
So it's a question of education.
Yeah.
And then having those people, you have to get in front of those people.
Right.
And they have to feel comfortable that you're okay to talk to about this, basically.
Sure.
That it's not, they don't have to worry about the legal system doing anything because they're talking to you. Because, right?
And
that's...
So once you do educate folks that are going through this process, what recourse do they have?
Yeah, I was going to say, then what?
I mean, I've seen it. I've been subject to it, where a magistrate says, I will say, I've got these documents right here that say this, and then magistrate, I don't care about that. They literally would just wave their hand and say, I don't care about that.
Right.
And then go and talk to the other party. That has happened. What's your recourse in that case? Do you back talk to the magistrate and say, no, you're going to pay attention to this?
Yeah, it's really hard.
What can...
Yeah, in the moment, it's...
What can you help with their... I'm not like putting you on a spot. I'm saying,
yeah, I really...
Educating them to say to know that this is wrong, that this process is wrong is one thing, but...
And they don't have the authority to do anything.
Yeah. So I have been scooping people in, and just connecting them with other people who have gone through it, because a lot of times they have the knowledge, they experienced it, and they can say, this is what I did, and this is how it went. It's not legal advice.
Are there any good stories about this?
Sure. There are some successes.
So that, I would think, would help,
yes.
right? They feel that there's some hope.
Yeah, and I mean, on our website, we're putting a lot of resources up. Like, we're putting cases up that might be helpful to people. We'll be putting we have a blog on there that we talk about different parts of the issues.
Good.
It's hard for anybody to find a good attorney in New Hampshire. So our judicial selection committee and our bar association and our Supreme Court, there's a lot of, and not even just that, but like our major law firms and our child advocacy centers and our the Children's Trust Fund. There's a lot of crossover.
You see the same names.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hands in the pot, and it's very difficult. And they like Mark Pearson and others constantly are like, oh, you know, it's always the pro se litigants. We're going to write a book to help them. But, you know, they're not mentioning that most pro se litigants, most people who go pro se, are doing it after their third, fourth, or fifth attorney who didn't provide good service to them. And now they have to go it on their own because they feel like everybody in the system is working against them. And they might be right.
Yeah.
So it's a case-by-case thing. Like, if people come and talk to me, I might say, hey, to someone I know who's gone through it, you know, do you know anything about, you know, filing a motion for this? And that some of the people in our organization have gone through it so many times and know the statutes and the rules like the back of their hand. So they might say, oh, well, they're supposed to do this, you know. Again, it's not legal advice, it's just explaining.
How do you confront them to get them to change that process? I mean,
motions, kind of backing them into a corner.
So having the right people there, right, first of all.
Yes. Oh, having court watchers is really helpful. Yeah. Actually, they change their demeanor a lot. Because another tool they use is they'll mess with the recordings, with the official tape recordings, or they'll alter the tape transcripts.
Wait. How does that happen? How is that even? First off, the recording is there for a very specific reason, to record everything that happens. Mm-hmm. Second off, it's supposed to be everything. Editing that is
illegal.
So why is it allowed to be edited? And if it's not allowed to be edited, then how do we know about it? Because you obviously know about it, that things are edited. So
yep. So some people who have gone through the court have gotten multiple different transcripts with different things in them. There's a document. It was a request for RTF, what's it called? Basically like for a contract, and there was a kickback in there for the judicial branch from the e-scribers, who's the transcription company, for the judicial branch to review the transcripts before they come. So those are the transcripts. But how does it happen in the court? Well, there is a button behind the bar where the judge sits, and he can turn it off or on. And there's been cases where they do shut it off, and there were witnesses, and the judge, you know, verbally abused a litigant, and you know, even some explicit language, and then turned it back on, and then later when they got the recording, it was gone. So all
right, so I can walk in with a recorder and I can record everything.
You can't.
What do you mean you can't? I've seen people come in.
So there is no independent recording. Betty Gay brought a bill.
Betty, yeah.
To
you can do it in
to
every
make
other
that.
courtroom.
And I think Lisa Post brought something too. Yeah.
So Betty Gay was stopped.
And this one's not even a courtroom.
It didn't pass.
It's not a judge. It's not even a courtroom. And you're saying you can't record these public servants doing their job in public.
Yep.
So the person in the black robe that's there.
They can give you permission. If they give you permission.
You have to ask permission.
Right.
What if I don't get permission, I record it anyway, and then I catch them cutting it up?
Right.
Am I going to jail for that?
I don't know.
I'll bring food. Cake with a saw in it or something.
I don't want to give you, I'm not going through anything right now.
No,
it's frustrating as heck. Never mind the fact that the system is built to be, profitable rather than practical. But it is also deteriorated into this, like you said, this nepotism thing where everybody knows everybody, and if you're not in good with the judge, then the judge isn't going to be nice to you. But
it's not even the judge first, is it?
Well, the magistrate. I'm sorry.
The referee.
The referee.
They keep changing the names.
We'll call him a referee.
Yeah, I like that too.
They keep moving around the pay too.
And then it's also deteriorated. We've all heard it. It's one-sided, and it's sexist. Right.
So that
I mean,
is not.
What's that?
We've heard that, right? And you'll hear it from women and you'll hear it from men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, it just comes down to any bias that bleeds into your court proceeding is only there because of the rules and the statutes that govern the way that the family court can operate. In a real court, bias is limited by consistent rules, consistent procedure.
Right, but I mean, I think we've all seen it where one side or the other is obviously favored by the referee before they even walk into the room.
Yep, you're right. And it shouldn't be, that's arbitrary. So it's not due process.
It's incredibly frustrating.
So what do people do? How do they reach out to you? Are you are there groups of people that want you to speak to them?
We hope so.
Do you offer
we
court
just started
watchers and things like that.
So I send out a message. We've sent out messages. Hey, court watchers needed. That's not like one of our main things that we do. I just do that when I see it, and I unofficially just share it with groups of people who I know might be interested in helping. Like we have a friends and allies group where it's not. I don't moderate it. It's just people who have those issues and they talk about it. So I might put it there. But essentially, by our website, you can subscribe. There's a petition on there for the general court to investigate, for the House to fully investigate using all of its powers of investigation to fully investigate. Because we've had resistance for issuing subpoenas and things like that. And use all its powers. And it's going to lead to some judges being exposed and that they should be impeached. And I think that there's resistance on dealing with that. But so nhfamilyjustice.org.
What does a court watcher do?
They just sit in the courtroom and witness. That's it.
It's sort of like watching the vote.
I've been in family courts before where the referee tells everybody to leave. Everybody out unless you're a party to this.
Yep.
Can they do that?
Yep.
Can they do that to a court watcher?
You have to have permission from them to be there as a court watcher.
You have to have permission from the magistrate
or
referee. Or
So the party will enter your name as someone who's going to be there.
And they can still say no. So you can have a court watcher.
They can say no. They probably can, but typically they won't because they know, that someone's there to be and so they want to make a good impression and kind of save face, I think.
Wow.
I have not heard of them rejecting any of the court watchers, but I'm not sure. But our main mission is to do kind of a grassroots outreach, at your church, at your work. If you have a nonprofit, if we want to present the information to you so that people understand what's going on, so you can take it and talk to your legislator. People are talking about a class action lawsuit. This is going on in other states too.
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't know if you saw the Arizona ad hoc committee. It's like a joint ad hoc committee between their Senate and House, but they had a hearing the other day, and I mean the public was coming in and talking about how, you know, they had to pay $450,000 in fees. They had to take out a second mortgage on their house, ordered by the court, to pay the fees. Someone had $1 million in court fees, and they drag you on and on and on. If you're one who's on their docket, the complex cases, they want to fleece you until that youngest child ages out. And so you'll have people who just keep finding themselves going back and back over and over again. So yeah.
And the alternative is just to give up and say, okay, I'm not even going to see my child until he's 18.
And you know many people do that. And then they're just paying the child or stuck with the child support order. So they need to have one non-custodial parent. So this is why there's all this resistance to 50-50 as the baseline. They want to award one parent custody and one parent to have less parenting time so that they can generate the child support orders, because that's what the Title 4D money flows for. And BCSS, the Bureau for Child Support Services, has said in committee that they could write the orders for the family court. So it's just very mixed. But yeah, we want to tell people about it. We want to tell people about the solution, which is to go back to a court of equity and law, and not in the kangaroo star chamber that is the family court. We want to go back to, you know, civil disputes being in a real civil venue court. Under, you know,
rules of evidence.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and requirements for due process and rules of equity actually being applied, because it does say in the statute that it's a court of equity, but they don't use the rules of equity in the court, really. They just go by statute. And so, like, say you were accused of abusing a child, and it's crazy because how much time do we have left? Sorry, I don't want to.
We have some time. Go ahead.
Say that DCYF made a finding that you were neglectful. And so they do that in a hearing that they don't provide you notice for. They tell you after, they send you a letter and say, we had this hearing. And
without you being there.
Right, and we found this complaint is founded. And now we're petitioning the court to take your children. And so if you find yourself in that situation, chances are that the judge will be ready to rubber stamp that, and the referee will be ready to rubber stamp that, and DCYF has perjured in court, and then, you know, you might have your child taken away. And then on the other side, so they would make horrible decisions sometimes, like based on no due process there, and it's not a criminal conviction, so you're losing the most important thing in your life to you, but you never had due process, and you're not a criminal, but you have your child taken, right? And sometimes they'll put a protective order in place for like 3 children, but not the one who lives in the home. Another example is, like I said earlier, where there's a conviction of domestic violence against a child, and they'll award, you know, more parenting time with that parent, or they'll place the child completely in the custody of that person. So it just makes no sense, you know. But that is what drives the good parent to keep coming back and fighting, and that keeps the case going.
The money rolling.
They're holding that kid out and saying,
as bait.
Yeah, and the good parent's going to keep coming back because they're going to fight for their kid.
Sure.
So and I mean, it's all just like on top of the DCYF issues, and then this court kind of enabling the issues with DCYF. You know, DCYF will come in. One time they came in and said, yes, that child should go to that home, and the family court was all ready to send that kid to that home. But it turns out that the other side of DCYF, the juvenile chins, basically, was there and had been in that home and knew that there was someone living in that home who had court orders to stay away from children for sexually abusing those, being on trial for sexually abusing those children. But the child protection side said, yeah, send them with that person. And the court did make the right decision in that case, finally got those kids out of that home. But, you know, it took someone else, you know, from a different department who just happened to be there and heard and made a statement. And if they weren't there, those kids would be back in that home with that offender. So those are the kind of outcomes that we're seeing. And the issues are, you know, like I said, constitutional due process deprivations, financial incentives, and lack of oversight. We have the Judicial Conduct Committee, and we used to have the Judicial Conduct Commission, which was for these referees, but there was one line in the statute that they ruled unconstitutional, and but the rest of it was fine. And the legislature, due to misinformation, voted to get rid of that altogether. So now there's literally no oversight mechanism for the referees in family court,
right,
at all, because they're not judges.
Once that order is made by these referees, there's no appeal process. There's no, hey, wait a minute, that's the wrong decision. I need someone else to tell you that you're wrong because you didn't take into account the fact that I told you that there was someone in that house that is not supposed to be around children, but you still put my child in that house.
That's right.
And if you made that decision, I don't have any recourse. If I go and I file again, I'm going to be filing and I'm going to be standing in front of the same magistrate.
Yep, you can appeal to the Supreme Court, but they only rule on like errors in procedure. They don't. Everything is discretion. So every action.
Everything's an error in procedure.
Right. So they say that's judicial discretion. We don't. They look at the case. So if you had a real appeal, they would determine facts.
Right.
You know, they would start by here's the facts of the case. But when you appeal a family court case to the Supreme Court, they don't determine facts. They look at the facts as determined by the family court.
Wow.
So it's not a real appeal. Yeah, it's awful.
Wow.
I don't have anything to say
I don't either.
That's nice or kind or anything. So
yeah. Why don't you let the people know one more time how to reach you, what you can use help with things.
Yep.
I think that'd be great.
Yes, we need volunteers. We need donations. We're just starting out, just formed like officially by the Secretary of State maybe 2 months ago. So we've got plans for touring libraries and churches and any events that we can table at, farmers markets, anything, just to get people to understand what's happening, for people to know what their rights are and what the law actually is.
And to advocate for change at the state level.
Right. Yep, so that's nhfamilyjustice.org is where you can find us and subscribe to our updates, sign our petition. And every week I send out an email about legislation going through the State House and current events. And
all right. Do you have a guest for next week?
I do, and I was just going to check. Hang on, folks.
Sure
Get all my glasses
right
on. I know. So next week is the 23rd, and I have Fred Bramante on.
Okay.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the company that he had, which was Daddy's, which was your eyes are getting bigger, so you know about them.
It could mean a bunch of things.
No, this has to do with music. Okay. And he started a company. Daddy's Music, and started in Stamford, Connecticut, the town over from where I grew up in Greenwich. And he was also had done some things with education in the state. I think at one time he either had Edelblue's position way back when, or he worked on some things. But it'll be fun. It'll be not quite as
intense
as this one.
Frustrating as
we need a break. I mean,
I'm not frustrated with you.
No, I think what you're doing is fabulous. I hope people realize.
And it's needed because there's so many people who are either in that system now, mired in that bureaucracy now,
yep.
or have been through it and came out of it, and share those frustrations. And something's got to give here.
Yeah, I mean, and as Republicans, you know, we're the party for families and parental rights and due process and rule of law.
And that's not happening.
And it's not. And I think it's just people don't know. People don't get it. They don't understand.
Yep.
So we need to teach them.
Yep.
All right,
thanks,
JP,
Leah.
You are on your own next week. I will be out
another
traveling.
Secret mission?
Another super secret mission to investigate another long-lived conspiracy. We'll talk about it when I come back.
Thank you. See you next week.